All right, yeah. So now it's recording. So I was just saying, so for people that don't know, it's kind of, the wrestling world, and um the lessons you learn in wrestling apply to everything in life, I think.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of it anyhow. And
Yeah.
but anyhow, so Quentin you wrestled at Penn State, and you got I think it was sixth, first, second, first, correct?
Yes.
Right. So if you were a Badger, you would be a legend at the Badgers, probably the second best ever
Well, I
behind the
think Andrew was it Andrew Howe? Was he? Yeah, he wrestled during that time.
I think he was a one-timer.
Yeah, he was a one-timer, but he was the same. Me and him were the same year. So like he actually took away my Big Ten Freshman of the Year award.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
salty
But I
about
mean,
that.
overall, I think, yeah, because he didn't win it twice, did he?
I think he might have taken second once.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So at Wisconsin, you'd be an all-timer, but kind of a good thing. You're at Penn State and their program is so good. It's just like
Yeah,
you're an
it's
average
unreal.
dude there.
Yeah, and that's what I said. It's like I thought I'd be one of the all-stars, but now I'm one of the regulars.
Which is, I mean, it's mind blowing. And part of this it's so interesting because it's a niche sport. However, your coach is arguably the best coach ever in
Yeah.
college sports.
Oh, for sure. No, I tell people I would say I would put him as different people that have wrestled. He is the best wrestler ever. Period.
Right.
But the way he wrestles is probably it's more geared towards folk style.
Right.
I would say just the way he's doing things, that he was definitely in folk style. There's nobody who is I will say what the future holds, but there's definitely nobody in the past or nobody in future that probably will be as good as him, just because the way he wrestles, it's not straightforward. It's not your normal way of wrestling. It's so unique that you can't really pick it apart by viewing it. You have to feel it.
Wow, that's so interesting. So just
Yeah.
so people know, your true freshman year,
Yep.
mind you got sixth, right?
Yep.
And then
Yeah,
you took a red shirt
that
year.
means right out of high school. And then what happened is Cael came in halfway. So because I wasn't recruited by Cael Sanderson, I was recruited by the previous coaches, which his name was Troy Sunderland, Matt Derlin, and Aaron Onspach. And then that year they also brought in Mark Perry, who's still on the coaching scenes right now. He came into Penn State for that year. Actually, Troy Letters was at Penn State too, for that year. I had a few good coaches there, or a few good wrestlers, but Troy Sutherland was one who recruited me. But then after that true freshman year, 2008 to 2009, that's whenever Cael Sanderson came in to Penn State. 2009, I think like April 2009 is whenever he got recruited to Penn State. Or no, he wanted to come to Penn State, realizing the gold mine that was in Pennsylvania, right, and the once in a lifetime opportunity that was here. So that's what he ended up doing.
Real quick on that, I didn't have this, but what do you think makes Penn State so damn good when it comes to wrestling?
Truly,
it's not even close either. They're so much better.
Yeah, well, truly, that's how it's viewed, but it's not that our guys are that much better. It's how everything gets put together. So, and I'll say an example like this: if you're making a cake, what's the difference between an okay cake and a good cake?
Gosh, to me, I don't know. I don't eat cake, but
yeah,
I would just say, like, is any food, whatever tastes better.
Yeah. What makes something taste better? It's
ingredients.
It's how it's prepared. It's how it's cooked, and the person putting it all together. And so that's really what makes Penn State so special right now in this moment. It's our ingredients, which is our kids, the kids that we're bringing in, their backgrounds, them being able to go 4 or 5 years without any major issues or problems. Now we have a few problems here or there. We had Andrew Long that got in trouble, and then Ed Ruth, he was always a wild card. There's different guys that they have, different issues. But so you have the ingredients of the kids, then you have how they're prepared, which is Coach. People don't realize, but Coach Cody Sanderson, he's a pre-med degree. He's super smart. And actually, one of the inside stories is Coach Cody Sanderson. He told me one time he wanted to go to Cornell for college because he wanted to be like a medical doctor, but he knew his brothers wouldn't be able to get in, so he had to go to Iowa State. So they all were going to go together. But yeah, he's really the brains behind preparing us, preparing us, and then also, then how's everything cooked? When you say we're baking this cake, how's everything cooked? Is you got Coach Cody, Cael, and Casey Cunningham is doing the technique. He's really good on top and bottom, those areas. Cael is extremely good on his feet. And Casey and Cael and Cody, they all have their own strengths outside in different areas as well. But that's kind of like how long it's being cooked is kind of like you put it all together. And then once you put all those together in the correct format, your outcome is these guys that are just unbelievable. Now, the good thing about Penn State, where like we always ragged on Iowa, we always said like Iowa were like robots, or they're just very straightforward because they have a very specific wrestling style. Iowa's, I would say is more of your regimented military style. Just they're going to ground and pound you, which it worked all through the 90s. That was their difference. That was their niche, was that from the 90s and early 2000s, nobody was willing to wrestle as hard as them. And that's why they were, Iowa, I would say mostly so Iowa. Oklahoma State was that way as well. That's what made them so good. But now we're in a different era where the funk, you got Ben Askren, he won, finals 4 times, won 2 national titles using the funk. And that's kind of more of Cael Sanderson's area of expertise, is that funkiness and how to wrestle through situations. So when you put all of that together, that's what makes really the Penn State difference. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of everything put together. And then on Coach Sanderson's side of things, he has the backing of the alumni. We have a great alumni base. We got plenty of funding that to put in the things into place, because remember back in the 90s, the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, which was where all the Olympians went, they're there wrestling with all of those college guys. Well, if you notice in the past 10 years, since 2008, when we started these regional training centers for college, that's how we've been able to compete on the international level with wrestling, because we are getting our guys in college better. And so having Cael being able to put that in place has been a tremendous help and a huge asset, helping our young guys to get better quicker whenever they come in the program. But truly, when you put it all together, that's the difference that Penn State makes, is that it's every little piece of it. And it's not directly one thing, because every college does one of those pieces good, but you have to put them together in the right combination.
Well, I'm glad you. So that's my whole goal here, is to kind of break down some of those pieces. But what I was kind of getting at though was not so much Penn State, but the state of Pennsylvania as far as wrestling. Like the kids, youth on up, Pennsylvania is just so, like at the national tournament right now. I mean, the overwhelming majority of all Americans are going to be from the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's every year, year after year.
So good. And it's just it just must be the culture there. Like people just love the sport.
Yeah, it's the culture and heritage, I would say. Yeah. So just living in
Wisconsin's catching up though, Quentin, I'm telling you.
Well, every state truly is. Yeah. You're gonna, and it's not gonna be that hard, because really the key was, think about, here's kind of my interpretation of the history. Pennsylvania has a lot of these things called, at the time, they're called teacher colleges. Small colleges, kind of like community college at the time, back in the 30s and 40s, kind of like that time frame. Well, at these teacher colleges, they all had the sport of wrestling. So whenever these teachers who graduate college, they wanted to go to these schools in Pennsylvania, public schools, this public school said, hey, we want to start an athletic program. Who knows what to teach? And they say, oh, I know how to teach wrestling. It's very low cost. It's not hard to do. And so all these schools in Pennsylvania start teaching wrestling. Now we're into about 5 or 6 generations of family members wrestling. And I think that's truly the difference, where
I see.
In Oklahoma, they've always had good wrestlers. They're like that too. That's why there's such a passion out there. They have an Oklahoma, they have the passion for the wrestlers. Same thing with Iowa. They're kind of like that too. But in Pennsylvania, I think we just had more of that wrestling knowledge spread out throughout the state, and it became part of the culture and so important. And I think that's what's really made the difference over time. But now we have, I call it the flow wrestling effect, where flow wrestling really dedicated to the sport of wrestling, got that good technique, got that good coaching access, or the access to that, or even YouTube. YouTube started in 2000, and then flow wrestling 2004, 5-ish, and they're bringing that good competition. So now, truly, it doesn't matter if you're in Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, in the middle of nowhere, you have access to the same level of wrestling technique and skills and training as the kids in Pennsylvania have had for generations.
Yeah, dude, Flow's made a huge impact. Just for access. All right, man. So my goal is to kind of start with, because you're coaching high school. You obviously were a stud in college, and you coach youth as well, correct?
Oh yeah, I'm busy 4 months out of the year.
That's awesome. So
I'm
I want to
working
start.
16-hour days.
That's all fun days. Man, I'm gonna start at college and kind of work down. Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like college, so you got sixth first, second first. Big part, and this is where I hated wrestling back in the day, just because I mean, it's just what I was taught is the majority of my focus is on weight cutting as opposed to just being a good wrestler. And I mean, all it was be tough, train hard, weight cut, with like very little focus on actually being a good wrestler. Yeah. How much weight did you cut at Penn State?
Well, my freshman year, maybe 10 pounds, which is nothing.
Which is a tiny percent, percent wise, because you were 184.
Yeah, I started out 174 my freshman year.
174.
I bumped up to 184, which I was weighing 200 at the time, I would say, but I call it 10 pounds because just walking into the wrestling room, you lose 5 pounds just being in there every day. So you really don't have to lose a lot. And then in my senior year, so I wrestled 2 years at 84, 2011, 2012. And then my senior year, 2013, I wrestled 197, but I weighed into NCAA finals, I think 5 pounds underweight.
Right.
Yeah. For NCAA finals, I was 5 pounds underweight that day. I mean, I wasn't cutting at all. It was just what I naturally weighed.
Yeah. And then as far as the program itself, I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem like those guys cut much, if anything.
No, not really. The guys don't cut wrestling, because when you're cutting weight in wrestling, you're not getting better at wrestling. The key to winning is you got to get better at wrestling. Sometimes you need to cut weight. You got to be at the right weight class. Now, Coach Sanderson calls it, you got to be at the right weight class, but you don't need to be, if your focus is on cutting weight solely, then you're not trying to get better at wrestling. Now, the reason people cut weight is because allegedly the lower weight, you're bigger and stronger. Well, the problem is whenever you're at that lower weight, yes, you are bigger and stronger, but third period becomes very tough. Right. And no one wins the match. They don't give you, unless you pin the guy, you don't win the match in first period. They count up the points at the end of the third period. So you got to be able to finish strong in that third period. Well, all you need to be is 1 point ahead at the end of the match. So, you got to have the energy and strength and stamina and find a way, get better at wrestling, win that third period.
I would add too, especially a 3-day tournament where you got to make weight 3 times. So that third day of cutting weight, I mean, you really got to be struggling.
Yeah, I mean, in our coaches too, it's not, I mean, I wasn't that way, but it wasn't abnormal for our coaches to be up to, 10, 11 o'clock at night, helping our guys lose 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds, because they told them, listen, you need to feel good today. You got to eat, make sure you're feeling good. Don't worry about making weight until you need to make weight at the end of the day, so I mean, our guys there have been our guys who do cut weight, and cutting weight's funny, where like I was a sissy when it came to cutting weight. Like I'd go and coach, I'd say, hey coach, I don't know if I'm making weight. And he says, why, how much you over? I'm like, 2 pounds. He said, get out of here. And so, but then we have our guys, they're coming to practice like day before, they're like 6, 7, 8 pounds over, but they were able to lose that and wrestle fine. Every body is different when it comes to cutting weight. Your body reacts. Yeah. So, guys like David Taylor, he could lose 10 pounds the day before and he'd be perfectly fine wrestling, relatively. He'd be perfectly fine. It wouldn't affect his wrestling. Where you have somebody like me, I cut 10 pounds the day before. I'm dead. I can't do nothing out there. It's a mind game. It's a physical game. And you just gotta you gotta be in tune to your body.
Right. Yeah. Some guys are sweaters, man, where they just sweat.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And you got to be in tune to your body, because what works for me isn't going to work for you. And the only way you're going to know what works for you is by listening to your body and getting, if you're feeling good, you're understanding that's what makes me wrestle better, or that's what makes me good.
Right. There's one thing, like I'm a huge fan of just the mindset and everything, sports especially. So what kept you motivated, right? You win nationals. Yeah. Like what brought the motivation? Like, man, I want to do this again. I want to do this again. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Really, it's the winning aspect of it. It keeps you motivating. The challenge. It's the challenge for me. It's truly, you got to love the process, not necessarily the outcome, where you're not trying to, you got to make little wins. And the goal is, get to the top of the mountain. Well, how do you get to the top of the mountain? Well, I got to get to that next little peak.
Right.
And so you got to break it down and give yourself challenges. So where even
so you have like a big goal with little tiny mini goals to reach along the way.
Yeah, because the coach would always say that too. It's like, don't worry about winning the match, just keep scoring points and eventually you'll win.
Yeah.
So you just got to focus. You got to focus on scoring points, and same thing with staying motivated. You got to celebrate your little wins. So I'd be in wrestling practice and in my mind, I would be like, I'm down 5 points. I got to score 5 points. My partner has no idea. And I go berserk on him, scoring points. But I mean, to him, I'm just wrestling tough, but in my mind, I just got to win because I scored the 5 points in the 30 seconds that I wanted to. So I created those little situations, those little wins,
Yeah, little clever mind games within the game.
Yeah, that's really the key. Is like, and it really comes back to, and you probably heard it back at, at the beginning of Penn State wrestling, we always talk about having fun. Well, what's having fun? Having fun's playing games.
Yeah.
How do you play a game? You make up your own rules and it's a challenge and you overcome it. That's how you do it. And you could do that in anything. Anything that you do, you turn it into a game and all of a sudden it becomes fun. It becomes that fun, becomes enjoyable. Yeah. That's really the key, is that you got to keep, and that's probably the last piece of Penn State success, is that we keep, at the end of the wrestling season, most of our guys are like, oh man, it's over. Not like, thank God it's over, because we keep that fun mentality, that fun mindset throughout the season and how we're training. That our big thing is we don't overtrain, and overtraining is probably the easiest thing to do.
I think that's Iowa in a nutshell. Overtraining, grind, and burnout.
Well, yes, but the problem is the rest of the country learned, well, this is how you have to do it. Mm-hmm. So Iowa, Minnesota, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Ohio, all these schools started doing it because they got their training from Iowa. That's Dan Gable. He was the pinnacle. He set this bar that you train. You don't make excuses. You just keep pushing. Well, then you got Cael Sanderson. He came in the other way. And our biggest key to success is resting. So, and that's really the secret that people haven't figured out, because it's so call it like anti-American or anti-this.
Anti-grind wrestling.
Yeah, where you really actually hurt yourself more. And the only place that it shows is in the third period of the NCAAs. Mm-hmm. And I would even too, I'll throw this out there too, like Jordan Burroughs, he didn't place in the 2016 Olympics. He ended up not placing. And my theory, by watching him wrestle, was he was overtrained. His body couldn't give. His body couldn't give 100% or 110%. Where you watch these Penn State guys and they somehow squeeze out those wins in the moments that are critical. The only way you can do that is your body is rested and undertrained. Because if your body's undertrained, you can step up.
Right.
You can step up, you can increase it. If your body is overtrained, your body is in survival mode. Well, what's survival mode? 80% of capacity. And you cannot go above that because your body's only concerned about surviving. So that's
how much emphasis they put on sleep in regards to recovery and rest. Did the coaches talk about that much?
Yeah. I mean, the nutrition, make sure you're eating right, eating the good things. You can't just be eating drugs. Make sure you're getting a good night's sleep. Make sure you're sleeping.
I mean, that's back in the day.
Yeah.
I never heard anyone talk about sleep, but now going an extra 2 hours of sleep, your body feels so much better if you just get adequate sleep.
Well, even then too, that's sleep is relative, because some people, they only need 6 hours. Some people, they need 8 hours. Here's a good example when it comes to sleep. What's it? Seabiscuit, I think it was. Remember the horse, the race horse? Either Secretariat. One of them was a lazy horse. They slept all day. And he became, the greatest racehorse ever. And then they found out how, Art ended up being twice the size of the normal horse. That's the physical reason why. But those are, sleep, whatever works for you. You got to figure out what works for you. Some people it's going to be that more sleep. Some people it's going to be less. But
if anyone if you need 6 and you only get 5, not good.
Yeah,
if
not
you need
good.
8, but you only get 7, not good. You just got to have adequate for you, which is
Yeah.
spot on. I just thought of something you said it because you said funky, right? But
Yeah.
fun is a big part of funky.
Yeah.
It's just right in the word. And I
Yeah.
think that's what like funky, fun wrestling is so important. So you look forward to practice.
Yeah, and that's the thing is our guys, we look at practice is like recess every day. Even for the coaches. It's recess. It's a day you come down and you get creative in the room. You practice the certain skills, but then also our coaches tell us the way we do play wrestling, and that was back in the beginning. Play wrestling for us was do everything wrong on purpose. And we would do everything wrong on purpose and then figure out how to get out of those wrong positions.
Right.
All those bad positions. So what happens is when you do that in because wrestling and we've always been taught, don't get into this position, don't get in this position. Well, when you're wrestling the best guys in the country, they're getting in those positions. That's all they do. So if you haven't practiced getting out of those positions and you don't know what those positions are, so in the practice room, you have to force yourself to do everything wrong on purpose to put yourself in those positions. You're going to find yourself in a match. Because the key to winning this position is who does the correct thing first. Whoever the first person does the correct movement wins the position. Wrestling's all about positions. And so force yourself to learn how to win those positions. You win them. And the only way you win them is by reacting correctly first. Because the guy who loses is usually the one who they react to position and it's really wrong. I mean, I don't mean how many times I've lost matches, but really in practice, I try to do it in practice rather than match, where I've lost this position in practice. And I said, I do something and I think, man, this is going to work. And I get stuck on my back and I realize it doesn't work.
Right.
So
no, that's such you brought that up last time we talked. And that was like the number one thing that stuck out to me that I thought was just so brilliant. And I felt like such an idiot for never thinking of it is to do what you said in practice, do goofy, just try different things. And it's okay to lose and make mistakes in practice.
And the thing about too is do everything wrong in practice on purpose, but you're doing it on purpose. You're doing it with the intent of seeing if it works. Just think of, will this work? It might work. And just trying it and giving it your best try, give it your best effort. And then you realize, oh, that doesn't work. There's been times in practice where I remember one match specifically where I'm in practice, I hit a move and I go flat to my back. And I said, if I just hit it a little bit harder, I would have got it. Well, I go out there in competition, real competition, same exact position. And I hit it as hard as I could. And I go flat to my back. That was the wrong time to learn.
Right.
That's the wrong time to try and not test it out, and not having it tested because hitting it harder did not win the situation. It did not work. And that was the wrong time to learn that lesson. You want to learn that lesson in practice.
No, I love that mindset in practice. Speaking of mindset, what was your mindset going into a match? And I'm assuming or thinking it should be the same, like treat everyone the same mindset going in.
Yeah, it is the same. It's the same mindset, but really the key to it, like especially the NCAA tournament, what's going on right now, truly the key to winning these matches is to clear your mind. Don't think about winning. Don't think about be in a peaceful, restful state, in my opinion. That's just my opinion because I have my own theory on things.
You didn't get all fired up and have Cael slap you across the face and get all angry?
No, you can do that too. Yeah.
Did that work for some guys at Penn State? Because I never see anybody do that.
Yeah, well, my freshman year, when I did that, I would have a guy, Mark Perry. I'd have him. I put my headgear on first because I did it without my headgear once, and then my ear was ringing for a week. But put my headgear on, and I'd have him slap me as hard as he could across the face. Because what happens is that like when you get fired up, is getting your body ready to fight. All right. What happens when your body's ready to fight?
Oh, a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Fight or flight, right? Yeah. A lot of different.
How long can you fight though?
What's that?
How long can you fight?
I guess it depends. Not very long. If I'm really amped up, you burn out pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, it's a wrestling match. Very amped up. So you see these kids, they die in the third period. Explain this to me. How can you go 2 hours of practice wrestling 6 matches and not be tired? But you go out there for 6 minutes and you feel like your legs are rubber. Yeah,
you put too much mental stress on yourself. Too much pressure.
What's that mental stress or what does that release?
Cortisol.
And adrenaline.
Yeah. Stress
Adrenaline,
hormones. Yep.
yeah, adrenaline is what drives the fight or flight. So when you release the adrenaline in your body, you're amped up for about 3, 4 minutes. That's it. Or 8, 10 minutes. You only have a very short period of time. What happens if you get that amped up 30 minutes before you wrestle?
So you burn it out and then you go out there and you're out.
You'll see that here at the NCAA tournament, even this and every year, the guys, they feel like they're out of shape, they're breathing hard, they're like have that panic look on their face. Their adrenaline was released too early and they don't have it in the moment that they need it. So
Right. I remember David Taylor talking about that when he wrestled Dake in the finals.
Yeah.
He said he got too amped up and he never felt so tired in a match before.
Yeah. And you know why he got amped up?
No.
He was watching the NCAA finals.
Oh, watching his buddies.
Whenever you watch wrestling, your mind doesn't know if you're physically doing it or you're mentally doing it. And as wrestlers, when we're watching wrestling, we are wrestling every single match. Our body doesn't know that we're physically not doing it. So our body's releasing the adrenaline through the whole process. Right. And the moment that we physically need it, it's all gone because we used it up watching our buddies. And that's one thing I realized too. And that's what was the key to my success in college was that I did better in tournaments than I did dual meets. And the reason is because dual meets, I'm out there watching all my buddies and I got tired. In a tournament, I just laid back. I was sleeping myself. And I remember actually, this is a Wisconsin dude. I'll bring back memories. Travis Rutt. I was wrestling Travis Rutt. He was ranked #1 in the Big Ten at the time in 2011. And I had to wrestle him I was not having such a good year, bust my shoulder type thing. And I had to wrestle him that second match of Big Tens. And I was like number 8 seed, but so #1 versus number 8 right off the bat. And I'm thinking, everything, oh, good. We're just, that Quentin Wright, he's having a bad year. He's #1 kid. He's probably going to lose. Well, I ended up beating him. Why was I able to beat him? Because we were all back there warming up together. He was warming up for 30 minutes, had the old back sweat, butt sweat going down in his singlet. And he was all amped up, ready to go. What was I doing? I had soothing music on. I was laying down on the mat and I was half asleep. I get up. I walk out there to wrestle. And 2 moments in the match, whenever I needed to take down, I got it. Whenever he needed to get the takedown, he couldn't get it. His body was tired. And that's the difference in wrestling. It was 1 or 2 moments in the match where you call on the extra burst of energy. And do you have it or don't you have it?
Right.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, that mindset applies to a lot of things too. Easier said than done to stay calm and certain, but it takes a lot of practice, practice.
Yeah, it just takes, and also
intentional practice.
Yeah, and the really key is you don't think about winning. Just think about, how do you move your feet? How you might get a shot, how you finish a takedown. You visualize that type of thing. But you don't do it in a raw type of mindset. You just do it and like, this is kind of like what I'm going to do out there, that type of thing. Because when your body goes into fight mode, it's ready to fight. And that's where your adrenaline kicks in. You're good to go. And I never felt tired out there whenever I did that. The only times I felt tired is whenever I was watching dual meets and I'm watching all my buddies going up, my emotions going up and down, up and down, up and down. I burned all that, extra burst of energy.
Right.
He's like, your adrenaline's kind of like, it's like, what's a nitro burst or whatever they do in the car racing.
Yeah.
That's what your adrenaline is designed to do within your body. Like I said, I have no scientific backing, so I can't claim any of this is real. But for me, this is what it works.
Experience goes a long way. And the one thing too that's very, very obvious with you guys, because they say it so much, is you see each competition with a grateful mindset. Like you guys are grateful for the opportunity to compete, because it doesn't last long. How quickly that window of competition closes.
Yeah, and that's part of Cael's key to keeping us in the game, I would say, keep our mindset right, keeping us calm. Because when you have a grateful attitude, everything in life is better. There's a lot of good, everything. Yeah. So when just having that grateful mindset, being grateful for this, the gratitude goes a long way to de-stressing, to detoxing you. And there's just that mental mindset. Whenever your body's in that grateful state, it does things to you physically. It changes you. It does physical changes, and it keeps you in that peak performance, as opposed to if you have a negative mindset. Think about all the bad things that happen in negative mindset. You get sicker quicker. All these physical things happen whenever you're in that bad state. So the key to be gratefulness is truly is to be, when you're grateful, you have all those good things that come out because of it. And plus, whenever you're grateful, you want to do it more. You want to practice more. When you have that good mindset, and really, life is all about perspective. You could either have the good perspective of it or bad. It doesn't matter what happens to you. It's what you choose to do with it. And
that's the mindset thing I like so much. And it's so simple, really. It truly is
simple.
Such a simple concept. And I'm a huge fan of reading history or reading whatever. It just makes me like, oh my gosh, I have it so good compared to just so many things. I mean, it just makes it, gratitude goes a long ways.
Well, and that's the other thing too. And gratitude is really all about, it's all about perspective. It gives you a good perspective. And that's like, you see all the Penn State guys, they're always talking about, like, praising God, loving Jesus, which is, for the program, that's the number one thing that's in life. That's where it all comes from. We all come from a creator who's created, so gives us these abilities, or allows us to have these abilities, and we're all unique individuals. Having that perspective, helps you stay grounded, and you're always grateful for the chance, the opportunity. And then Coach Cael would go into, and I'd say it all the time too, whenever you're having a bad day, well, the guy over here, he would die. He doesn't have any legs. He was born this way. He would die to have that opportunity to go out there. And it just changes your mindset from being, negative, though, poor me, to, I still have it good. I still have good things going on. And you could always go down that path. And that's what really keeps our guys in a good state of mind, just having that mindset.
Speaking of your abilities, how much of your motivation was just to maximize your abilities? So you're like you're competing against yourself as much or more so than your opponent, just to get the most out of your own abilities.
Well, like I said, it comes back to a game. The way we make it was I played a game out there where, and sometimes and you could different games where some of them I gave like, what, I want to throw this guy for 5 points. And I go out there and that my whole match, I'm scoring points, but that was my goal. I'm trying to get that throw in there, or I want to beat this guy by major. That's kind of a boring game. More of it is, hey, I think I can get the single leg. Let's try it. And let's keep going until we get it. And that's really the key, is that you keep playing with, you make up these games and you just keep working towards those mini goals. You make up these mini goals and you keep going for it. And if you get it, you have success. And if you don't, well, you tried hard and look, you won along the way.
Yeah, this is so good. Because what I do, the health clubs I have, even with adults looking to lose weight, whatever, it's the same thing. You set little tiny goals, little wins, they stack up. And next thing you know, you have this huge win. But being with, practice, having fun and goals, it's a combat sport, right? And you can't not get heated once in a while. Do you guys ever have like just straight out fist fights in practice, or do you guys somehow avoid that, which I just don't think it's possible, but maybe?
We didn't really have any, we didn't have any. Yeah, we didn't.
You got all these alpha males like battling and no one got mad at each other.
Yeah, the thing is, we're not, it's, well, and that
comes good.
That's where the pride comes in, and that's why we really didn't have, we had pride in ourselves and our ability against competition. And we had pride in our ability to, like, with the pins and tech faults, those type of things. But within the room, we didn't have many like fist fights or altercations like that, because it was, Coach, well, I said a lot of it probably stemmed from, if anybody thought they were good, they just go wrestle Cael and then it's over.
Right.
He was just that good. I don't think there's nobody who's even close to, being even now, the rumors are that even Kyle Snyder can't even beat him. Jake Farner, these guys who are Olympics still can't beat him. That's just how crazy good he is at wrestling.
When you have the enforcer in the room, people know that.
Yeah, the enforcer. But within the room, we didn't really have any, we didn't have any fights, because it was all about it's really weird, because it's all about having fun. And if you're getting the best of you that day, you just had a bad day.
Yeah.
It wasn't your day, because that day your best might have been 1 point, and that, it just, you had a bad day. We'll come tomorrow and do the same thing. Yeah.
Don't dwell on it, move on.
Yeah. And, even where our coaches would line it up, where coaches, the way we'd structure practice too, where like the guys that I call varsity guys, year 10 guys, he would take 2 or 3 of the guys that aren't like in the lineup and he would do like a shark bait where the varsity guys are in the whole time, and those other guys that are just on, on the team that don't quite make it or aren't number 2 or number 3, they rotate in on that number 1 guy and they beat him down until those guys are scoring the points on that number 1 guy. So now their confidence getting booted because they're getting it, and that guy, he's getting the competition that he needs to learn how to wrestle when he's tired. So the coach, and that was part of that, I'd say, baking process with us. It was like putting everything together. There was a purpose and there was a reason how they all put it together.
And I was going to ask you that, how you decide who wrestles with who in practice.
For most part, the kids pick their own partners. Sometimes Coach Cael signs it, but Coach Cael, Casey, and Cody, what they do is they do put the focus on the guys who are in the varsity lineup. They're kind of the main guys, and everybody else gets to pick on them, I would say.
Right.
And pick on them in a way where, like you'll have 2 partners where they rotate in on the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
Or the number 1 guy has to, get off a bottom. He starts getting off bottom, and then you move to the partner has to do the same stuff too. So really the focus is more on those guys who are in that position. But then also it's nice because the guys who aren't the number 1 guys, or they're, they didn't do much in college, but they're on the team because they have good grades, that type of thing. It gives them a chance to be able to score points on these good guys in the room, and it gives them an opportunity just to have a level of success.
All right. Well, that's cool. In practice, I mean, you guys are super high level, right? You can't get much higher level.
Yeah.
How often did you work on just the basics of wrestling? Stance, motion,
Well, and that's truly where, the fun and the funk is good, but truly, how do you win big matches? It's whoever does the basics better. And that's the key, is that, so we kind of worked on it every day. That we
even
start
at
off
the highest level, basics every single day.
every day. Your stance, here's how you're moving your feet, here's how you're moving the tie, here's how you
the reason I'm making you repeat it, not to be mean or anything, is just because I want the youth wrestlers to hear this.
Oh yeah, and
right, because they kind of want to move on to other stuff, but like basics at the highest level on repeat every single day.
Yeah, basics win big matches. You look at every big match, the guy who fundamentally does the basics correctly will win. And that's you watch NCAA tournament, you'll watch that. Why did somebody lose? Well, somebody took a shot on them. They did not sprawl.
Yeah, so
they gave up a takedown, or they had to scramble, giving up the takedown. They did not sprawl correctly. That's something so simple. Same thing with somebody's on bottom. What did they do? They didn't stand up. They tried to roll around, got into a funky position. Time ran out. They did not get that 1 point, which ended up being the difference in the match. Those basics in wrestling. Why did somebody get to your legs? You did not keep your hands down. You reached with both hands. Those basics in wrestling is the difference, especially the higher you go in wrestling, the more important those basics are. That you have to have those basics, and you have to have it down in muscle memory. And that's really key.
I think that applies to everything, any sport, music, you name it. You gotta have the discipline to just constantly master the basics. And that's it's just so important. What do you think is better? I think I know your answer, but like to be really good at the basics in a handful of moves, or to learn a gazillion different moves?
You know what I mean? Isn't there a quote from Bruce Lee? Like, I'm not afraid of the guy who knows 1,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the guy that knows 1 kick and did it 1,000 times.
100%. That's a great quote.
Yeah. I mean, he was one of the best. He was the best, say Bruce Lee, the best martial artist ever. And truly it's not, and with Coach Cael, it's about finishing. You take 1 shot, you finish that shot, because it doesn't matter if you take 10 shots and you don't finish any of them. You got no points. Right. You got to be able to, you take the shot, you finish it. You have to follow through and finish. So I would really say it's 1 or 2 moves that you are extremely good at it. And you got to have at least 1 or 2 moves on your feet that nobody can stop. If you have a move that nobody can stop, you're going to win, because nobody can stop it. You can win. And so truly it's less moves, but being able to hit it on everybody. Now, with the NCAA, at the NCAA level, I tell people too that if you have that 1 move and it worked this year, it ain't going to work next year, because those guys the competition adjusts to your move over from 1 season to the next. Right. So that move will work, but you have to have a different setup to get to it. where you can't do the same thing you did one year to the next year. So you have to be able to adjust. You can keep the basics the same, but how you go into it or how you complete it can be different.
Right. Real quick, this is a side tangent. What do you think of your opinion on total matches guys are wrestling? So like when Cael wrestled, he was wrestling, 40 matches a year, almost. Now a lot of these guys are like 17, 18, a lot of guys, 20 or less matches. Why?
Probably
how many matches did you wrestle a year?
God, I can't remember. I think maybe 30, 60, 90, 110. Yeah, I was about 25 to 30, I think.
Yeah, I think because I think you're wrecked. You're like 30 and
well,
one
and a lot
or
of it has to
whatever.
do with paying for travel, where you're going.
Oh, I see the finances of it.
Finances of it might have something to do with it now at this point of it. The level I know within the Big Ten and stuff, they don't want to wrestle the same guy 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
Right.
And go to the big tournaments. And really the wrestling's okay. It's about, level of competition. You got to be able to wrestle against somebody who's beating you. And if you're not, well, with Penn State guys, it's hard to go somewhere who find people to, to beat on them. So I think that's probably the reason why they're wrestling a little bit less. They're being more specific about where they're going. And they're trying to avoid the other Big Ten schools, which we already wrestle. We'll see them 3 times in a year.
Right. So that makes sense.
Matches are okay. I mean, it's all experience. So if you're at the youth level, it's all experience.
Right.
It's all going to help you in the long run. The more matches you wrestle, you don't need to do that. Truly, it's not something that's necessary because a match is just practice. That's all it is. Except for a match, you got to pay a lot more stuff to be in it. You got to pay entry fee. You got to put in your time.
See, I'm coming from a selfish perspective where I want to watch these matches. Right. Yeah. So if guys wrestle more, I get to seat watch, and that's just any fan.
Absolutely. That's what we want as fans. Well, and that's what we want as fans. So truly, if we could set up a model where fans could pay, $2 to watch a match, and all of that would go to being able to create up these matches, probably would work. People wouldn't have any problem doing that.
I'd be happy to pay.
Well, that's what I mean is that it's more of a funding model to get more of those matches, because right now, all that funding is coming from these colleges, especially at the college level, and to get them to here, to get them to there, if we had a big pot of money that we would just, pay every person to come to a tournament and wrestle, they probably would do it. So really that funding is not there. But when it comes to, there's some strategy with that too, because the less you see somebody, the less you can adjust to them. So there's a little bit of that goes on too.
A little gamesmanship in there, of course.
Oh yeah. Where there's some people where, you wrestle them the first time and they get you that first time, second time, all right, I got them. And then they get crushed the second time.
Yeah.
And so there's some of that goes on too, because really the way college wrestling is set up is that there's only one time you want to win, that you need to win the most. 1, get to NCAA tournament, and 2, you got to beat those guys that are there.
Right.
Because it's all set up to beat those guys there. And that's really the key. So sometimes, wrestling more matches will play into helping that. And sometimes not letting people being able to gauge you or feel you plays into that.
What do you guys' conditioning workouts look like? I mean, wrestling itself is great conditioning, but I'm assuming you did conditioning outside of wrestling. So
a little bit.
What those look like?
Yeah, it's really not that much, honestly. We didn't do that much of conditioning outside of wrestling. Like we would do sprints. We would do 1 day a week. We do sprints for like an hour, or like running stairs. That was about it, once a week or so. But then
define sprints. Are you doing like 100s, 200s, 400s, all the above?
Yeah, I would say maybe 200 or less. We're not doing long stuff. We don't do anything more than a mile. Nothing that was long. That went during my time at Penn State. I'm not saying it's, anybody can do what you want. I think any kind of conditioning is good. Any kind of running, training, lifting, anything that makes you out of breath. Was it aerobic?
Yep.
Yeah, anaerobic. Which one? Whatever it's making, kind of like the conditioning that's good for wrestling is the shortened sprints. It's like is the short sprinters. Now the long wrestling, the long stuff. You can get the same thing I do in the short sprints over a long period of time, because that brings in your mental toughness and being able to win and stuff. But, you're going to get that same mental conditioning from doing like a 3-mile run, that learning have to push through it. The key is whenever you do like a long period of time, it's about pushing through that tiredness and being sore. But either way, those are both fine, but really for wrestling, you want to look at those fast twitch muscles, and you want to really focus on that, doing stuff that's short and explosive. But you also got to work on your mental toughness, being able to push through things as well. There's a little bit of a length in there too. But we did a thing called a Versa climber. that thing was brutal in our room. So we did a lot of that. We did bike sprints and Versa climber and kind of like just
What is
running.
the Versa climber? I can't picture it.
Uh,
Is it where you're standing up like this?
it came from down below. It's the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you have arms and you go like this, and then you have your legs with it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the coaches would set like, and it's kind of like running stairs.
Mhm.
And the coaches would set, you have to get 800 to like, or 900 within 32 minutes. And
Right.
if you didn't get it, you had to do it again. You didn't get it again, you had to do it again. You know, I mean, like you'd have to do it 3 or 4 times, which was just awful. So you really have to book, or you had to beat what you did before. You had to beat your personal best, because some people get like 1,200 reps in. Some people only get 800 reps in.
Right.
I was an 800 rep type of guy. I was terrible at the conditioning. Actually, the guys were sad whenever I left college, because I took away their 30, 40-second breaks in between exercises, because I was so far behind everybody in the sprints and conditioning. Oh, it was well known too.
Yeah.
It was funny. Like, I was running a joke where because I said to Coach Cael, I said, "Hey, Coach Cael, I can't win the sprint, but I can get a takedown in 30 seconds, F." And he says, "That's all that matters."
That's right. Did they ever? Did they ever use exercise as a punishment? I can't imagine so.
Yeah, a little bit. Like really back in Cael's earlier part of his career. So it comes back to like getting your sleep and doing what's right for your body. Like when I first started Penn State, Cael had like a 0 tolerance, no alcohol policy year round. And then we had an Andrew Long situation. He got in trouble, and all these stories came out about guys drinking, and Cael kind of relaxed on that. And he says, well, if you're going to especially in season, if you're going to go out and drink, you got to come in and work out for an hour. You know, you got to get an extra workout in to work that off. So I'd say that's kind of like where that came in.
Yeah, so you got to kind of pay the price for the fun you had, and you know it's coming.
Yeah, you had to come in and get an extra workout for that time you did to burn off all the extra calories in that regard, or staying out late. You got to come in and get an extra workout. That's kind of how he did it. Yeah, that's kind of how he monitored it. Where like if our schoolwork wasn't up to par or something like that, he would just have us get up early in the morning. We did Friday night lights, and then he realized that losing sleep that way wasn't good. So he had guys get up early, like 3, 4 in the morning. They'd have to come in on a Saturday and just like sit in a study hall, do it that way, as opposed to staying up late.
Right. No, that's amazing. I guess I kind of was getting at one thing. I find exercise to be a gift. I'm very grateful for having a body that can do it. And, there's people I work with a lot of times, like they turn exercise into a punishment. And especially little kids, like, oh, if you don't listen, I'm going to make you sprint. It's like, well, I don't want to turn something as a gift like running into a punishment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I like to try and keep it as like being able to sprint and run and exercise. It's just always a blessing and something that I should be grateful for. But as far as workouts go, what about strength? Do you guys ever do just straight up strength training, like just heavy lifting?
Oh, no, that's what we do. Yeah, we focus more on powerlifting for our strength training. We do a lot of the powerlifting, the big muscles lift. And the key is to do it with the correct technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's really the key, is that we do a lot of strength training, I would say, focusing on that, the correct technique. We have his name's Mike. He helps us out there at Penn State, and he's done a really good job with our strength training. But you won't be able to tell, because you look at our guys don't look big. They don't look solid, the Penn State guys. But some of that's, we don't really focus on cutting weight either.
Yeah.
We kind of look soft as wrestlers out there, but then you grab a hold of us, we're pretty strong.
So you say, are you talking like deadlifts, power cleans, hang cleans?
Oh yeah.
Squats?
Yeah, deadlift. Yeah, your powerlifting, which would be your deadlifts, your power lifts, or your deadlifts, squats, benches, pull-ups with weighted pull-ups, with dumbbell weighted pull-ups. Other thing, even like holding a bar, doing the back extensions while holding a weight on your chest, that type of thing. A lot of it's just like free motion, power cleans. And we don't really go heavy with that, because a lot of these guys don't have that technique. But it's extremely it's good to get that full body movement, the power cleans, the power snatches, so we dabble a little bit with that. But the guys who know how to do it and can do it correctly do a little bit heavier weight or push themselves. Everyone else, we just introduce it to really teach the body how to work together while holding the weight.
Yeah, be explosive.
Yeah,
lift the blaster a double. What was your go-to meal the night before a tournament?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Or
Usually,
and maybe you didn't have
well,
one. I don't know.
and yeah, I really don't have one, but really,
Well,
I
what
would.
about day of a tournament? What are you guys eating? You know, you got a 3-day tournament. What are guys snacking on? What are guys having for their first meal, second meal? You know what I mean?
Yeah, our secret is Jimmy John's. So coach would have like at the NCAA tournament, he'll buy 12 Jimmy John's. And after you wrestle, you grab one, you get to eat one. And then pretty much after every match, you can go ahead and eat one. That's kind of how it's standard. Yeah, that's kind of how it was done because it helps you watch and weight, gives you amount of the bread, the carbs, and a little bit of meat for the protein. But yeah, truly, that was it. Like in our competition, it was just Jimmy John's with just lettuce and either turkey and like a little bit of mayonnaise. And then you
Right.
drink water, focus on water. You can have a little bit of Gatorade too, but for me, Gatorade would give me like I call it like a sugar high and then a sugar low. So I couldn't have any Gatorade. But that was just me. Other people, you could drink. Coach Cael, he used to give us like a protein, or he gave us like an energy drink. He had like a powder that he was working with a guy that had developed their own. But it was a little bit more protein based as well. Back when I was wrestling, he had his own cookies, which was just like carbs. And he actually gave us like a performance cookie.
Right.
That we had, which were great at the time. But really outside of that, just like a
So
sandwich.
like quick, easy to digest energy.
Yeah, easy to digest. And one thing I learned through my wrestling is that you need about 500 calories every 3 hours in order to feel good and have energy. And if you don't have that, so if I was wrestling at 9:00 at night, I needed to eat that Jimmy John's at about 6. And that would make sure I had enough energy during that match at 9.
So 3 hours prior.
Yeah, between 2 to 3 hours prior. So that way it could be adjusted and your body could use it to, or at least that's what worked for me. Because I remember the year I lost NCAA title, that was one of the reasons why I lost, because I had my Jimmy John's at 4:00. I didn't wrestle until 9:00 at night. And I was exhausted. And I'm thinking, I didn't feel this way for other matches. What happened? Well, that's the only thing that was different was I ate
too soon.
Too early. It was all used up. I didn't have that extra energy whenever I needed it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's one thing too. I wish I never did, but I wish like have a practice tournament just to experiment with things, kind of working to
Well, we do
practice.
that at Penn State too, where like Coach Cael, I'm sure they probably still do it every year, where he would have us come in and wrestle at 8, 9 o'clock at night to practice the semifinals of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Just like you got to be able to wrestle at this time during the day. So here's your preparation, how you prep yourself for that. So he would do that with us too.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Practice the way you compete. What about, you ever do stuff where you just play the same song on repeat, or just have some distraction, or tape an eye shut, or just
no, that's every day.
Like that? What's that?
Every day.
Every day something.
Oh no, every day he would do something with the songs or the music. Put kids music on, like so you hear kids shows on, stuff that's just super annoying. He would do with that. Let me think, what other things too? Yeah,
Tape an eye shut, like you got your eyes swelled shut.
Yeah, he wouldn't do anything physically like that too.
No.
He would ask his situations. He'd do a lot of situations where like you're down by 2 points, you're down by 3 points, but over and over and over, forcing you to have to do that. But yeah, really with the music, he would do that. He would change up the music to really just be annoying for practices. I remember we called it, like we did a practice, we did a match one time. We called it was like 6 wrecking balls. Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball.
Oh yeah.
For 6 in a row on repeat. That's how long the match was. He had wrestled live that whole time. 6 wrecking balls. It was awful.
I'd be playing Baby Shark.
Song. I mean, he's done that. We actually had one called Badger Badger. It's a thing on YouTube, and it says Badger Badger over and over and over.
It's clever, man. It's clever. You got to learn to tune that stuff out.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens. You just learn not to listen to it or tune it out, or you just try to think that I'm grateful to be here wrestling. Whenever you start getting annoyed, you got to set your mindset. Yeah, he would do unique things like that too. But even when it came to de-stressing, I told somebody else one time that like back in 2011, whenever the whole Penn State, like the whole Sandusky scandal, that thing, it became a huge media thing and all the news and everything, couldn't get away from it. Coach Cael brought us in to practice the one day, and he had us chew bubble gum and watch The Lion King. That was practice.
chew bubble gum and watch Lion King.
Yeah. Yeah, that was practicing one day. That was to help us de-stress. That's like another thing he did too. Like he had his one day for conditioning. Instead of a conditioning practice, he had us come in and he put on like a 1970s like Pilates yoga type of thing and had us do that one morning. Oh my God. I mean, there was just some things that were just funny. It was
Right.
so weird. You just felt funny doing it.
So like pattern disrupt, have fun, goof off,
Yeah.
don't take yourself too
Oh, yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, he's a very interesting personality because obviously he's very quiet and reserved, but he's not like that in the wrestling room.
No, and
He's just
truly,
like, it's so hard he's like impossible to figure out just watching his interviews.
oh yeah, I know. You can't figure it out by watching his video because he has a persona. He's an introvert. First of all, big time, where he has this persona that's outside that keeps everybody away. But then in the practice room, it's kind of like the family, and he really opens up and truly he's of the Sandersons, he's the biggest goof off in the
Right.
family. He's just a big goof off, but that's truly been the key to his success as well, is that yeah, really a big goof off, but that's the key to his success because he's played every situation. He's played doing things and he's figured out what works and what doesn't work. And then he just does what works out there with the wrestling match. And that's really,
I think that's everybody. Like everyone's an introvert and an extrovert. You're an extrovert in your comfort zone, and his comfort zone is the wrestling room. So obvious.
well, yeah. And that's like, whenever I was wrestling too, it was kind of like, and whenever I was having struggling time, we'll go back to, loving God. And I was talking to God one time. I said, God, like, I'm miserable coming in the wrestling room. What's wrong? He's like, well, you keep trying to be Cael Sanderson. You keep trying to go for these ankle picks. He says,
Right.
I didn't create you to be Cael Sanderson. I created you to be Quentin Wright. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And he goes, what do you love to do? Well, I love to pick people up and slam them. That's what I love to do. He's like, well, then go do it.
Right. And they got fun.
Yeah. When I started doing that, I started having fun and my wrestling got better. And the coaches, they realized that I was getting better at wrestling. So they said, hey, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
That's right. That's one of the things I think is so brilliant because you watch a duel and every guy's, you guys all have the same tendencies, right?
Yeah.
There's certain tendencies you all have, but then there's also a lot of variance from one guy to the next, which is so great how they let guys excel at their personal strengths,
And that's really the key to the success too, where I think I like to take credit from that. Coach Cael learned that from me. When he first came in, that's, this is what you do. We practice all these basics and this is what you do, ankle pick and all that stuff. But then now he's changing to, hey, this is kind of how you finish things. Here's how it's more of a refining where he doesn't want to change. He wants you to keep doing what you've been doing because that's what made you good. Yeah. Now we refine some of these other areas of wrestling and we help out there. But he really wants you to get better at what you're already good at. And then we can refine some of these areas outside of that.
Yeah, it's brilliant, really. It's so, again, simple. Here's one thing I've always wondered, like you were obviously really, really good. And then you got someone like David Taylor who goes on and wins the Olympics. Like, what do you think's the difference? Like, what makes the Olympic champs different than the Division I national champs? I mean, most of them won Division I nationals too, but not everyone's winning the Olympics. Like, what's the separator there?
Life. That's it.
How so? Like, what does that mean?
Life gets in the way. The guys who win the Olympics are the ones who don't quit.
They just keep.
Yeah.
They have the drive to keep grinding for
they have the
6 more
drive,
years.
the financial ability, they have the right situation, and life doesn't beat them down. The guys who quit after college are the ones who they're tired of it. Life's beat them down and they're ready to be done.
Ready to be done.
Because the guys, and truly that if you win NCAA title, you're good enough to win the Olympics. Truly.
Right.
But the difference is the difference in that is who gives up. And the guys who go on the Olympics, they didn't give up on it. Right. Or the other thing too is like sometimes you get burned out. Like for me personally, I was burned out after college. I had like I said, I was one of the people that let life beat you down. I had different things going on in college, and I was ready to be done. I've been doing it my whole life, and so I was ready to move on to something else. where, guys like David, that's his love. That's what he wants to do. That's what he keep doing. And that's truly why they keep going. Or somebody like Gable Stevenson, where, he's that good and he can jump right in there and make it a big impact. So that's why he would be able to go on and do that. Guys like Jordan Burroughs, he wasn't at his peak in college. He started to get good while in college, where a lot of these guys too, like they burn out in elementary, or they burn out in high school because they just do too much. My theory is that you only have so much wrestling capacity. You have a 15-year time frame. And if you start that at elementary, you burn out in high school. If you start that in junior high or high school, you can end up having your best success in college. Now, not everything works out perfectly like that, but from kind of like, that's kind of my understanding, where I see the different kids where they were great in elementary and then they burn out in high school, or they were great in high school, then they don't do well in college. And then, or the guys who become the best in college, they end up becoming, do really well on the Olympic scene or internationally. I mean, I don't know, Nick Gwiatkowski, great international career there. He just kept going after he won the NCAA title.
Yeah. That brought me right to the next question. I think it was sometimes too with youth, it's like some guys, they just hit puberty so much earlier, right? So they're just physically dominating, and then all of a sudden people catch up and they lose that advantage. But what age do you think kids should start like really competing?
Truly,
or maybe there's not maybe it depends. Yeah. Whatever.
Well, I like to think of it as something that I'm trying to figure out myself as a youth coach. I'm trying to, I have a son who's 9-year-old, and don't tell him, but he's terrible. Right. But right now he is. But watching him, his athletic ability is off the charts. So it's whenever he figures out that he wants to compete and he wants to do well, he'll be as good as me. Right. But he has to make that choice, and he wants to be able to do it. And by me forcing it, it's just decreasing his career, in my opinion. Right. But that's my theory. I gotta figure that out, and we'll see if it works. That's my hypothesis, and we'll see if it works. But
it's a hard one, man. There's no right and wrong with your own kids. It's tough. Like, push too hard, not pushing hard enough. Like,
and plus, tough. Yeah, and then on top, any good, they have the expectation to live up to their parents, that type of thing as well. So there's a whole aspect there. But when it comes to kids in general, I like to listen to the kids, and they will tell you when they're ready to take it to that next level. But it ultimately comes down as they have to make the choice to want to be good. But you have to guide them there too. You got to tell them that, well, you didn't good. Well, because you really haven't been working hard. You haven't been working hard in practice, and that's why you didn't have success. If you want to have success, you're going to have to work hard in practice. And it might take a year of that. And then the kid says, I want to be good. I want to work hard in practice. Then you see that attitude change. But I would say when it comes to winning and losing, people don't understand what wrestling your best is until they're probably 12 or 13. And when they're mentally maturing, they don't understand what being good is, what being bad is. They're just out there wrestling. I know that's the way I was. I really didn't understand it. Well, wrestling my best was until I was probably about 12 or 13, because I wouldn't understand why my dad would be mad at winning a match. I would win a match 3-2 and he'd be mad. And I'd lose a match 7-9 and he'd be happy. I couldn't comprehend that. I couldn't comprehend that. Well, what it was how I wrestled. Well, I didn't understand how I was wrestling until I was a little bit older. And then I could make that connection. So I think most kids are like that. But you look at the Winter Olympics will be coming up next, I believe. I think it was at Norway. No. One of those. Holland. Anyway, they do something with their kids. They won most of the medals in the Winter Olympics, and they have all their kids. They focus on like athletic ability up until the age of 13. And then at the age of 13 or so, that's whenever they start doing the competitions and really sport specific stuff. But it's translated into a lot of the medals in the Winter Olympics. They were just crushing everybody. So I don't know what Holland. No.
So that actually brings me to the next question, which is like, because they're just working on skill development, not sport specific. They're just working on skills. Yeah. Which is, what do you think are the best skills to work on with youth wrestlers? Such as doing the splits, back bridges. What skills do you guys work on?
Yeah, body mechanics. Being able to do a forward roll, front roll, walking on your hands. try to do like a backflip type thing, being able to jump backwards, not being as scared to do that. Yeah, I'd say really gymnastic type of skills, athletic ability, climbing a rope, just those types of things are really important
You
for.
guys do a lot of that in your clubs? Lots of
Yeah,
gymnastics?
no, well, no, I don't do it, which I probably should, but
Well,
that's
not you, your kids do that kind of stuff?
yeah, I encourage it. We have a rope there to climb to build up their arm strength because that's also comes into having success where the kid comes into practice and after practice, he climbs a rope. He can only get, 1 or 2 hands up the rope. Next practice, he gets 4 hands up the rope. Well,
Yeah.
that's just a win for him. He can go home and be proud. No matter what happened in practice, he got that extra hand on the rope. So, but those are little skills that you can gauge and make those little victories.
Right.
Really overall with the kids is being more athletic will help them in the long run. You work on those basic skills as the basic skills, getting off of bottom stand-ups, switches, on your feet, getting your double legs, single legs, high crotches, even throws. Throws is more of an athletic type of skill that it's got to be learned. And if you can start them earlier age, they're going to have those skills whenever they get older.
What do you think? What are your thoughts or any advice? So anyhow, because I've just started going to youth wrestling tournaments, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. We do, yeah. Anyhow, parents, they can be insane. Like, do you see any value in screaming at a kid or anyone as they're wrestling? I mean, I like to speak in an encouraging tone, not like stand up.
Well, yeah. That's the hard part there too. It's a very fine line there where I even had it with my own kid. Like the one tournament I went to, scream at him, telling him what to do. He looks at me and he screams back to me, "I can't do it. He's too strong." Well, I went out on the mat and I disqualified him because he talked back to me. Right. And so the way I was saying, I was trying to help him. The way he was taking it was I was yelling at him.
Right.
And a lot of the kids, especially whenever it doesn't do much yelling at them, you're either going to do it or they're going to not. I'd say just be calm at the way Coach Cael coaches. When the kids are out there, they can't really hear you anyway. So unless they're looking at you, they're not listening to you. So saying or yelling stuff isn't really going to help a lot of the times. Just put it that way. It's not going to help. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're doing something, but truly you're not doing anything.
Yeah, I think too, it's just the tone. Like I like it, like encouraging, like, come on, you can, like encourage as opposed to yelling.
Well,
it's such a different tone. I mean, it's subtle, but because I see kids when they're getting yelled at, and all of a sudden, not only they're getting beat, then they start crying, and it's like such an awful
and that's
experience.
The other thing too. Yeah, and a lot of times too, kids will cry just because they're getting beat. It's tough.
It's very tough.
It's very emotional out there too. Some kids can handle it, and that comes with the mental maturity too, where you want to stretch a kid and be able to put him in that situation, but you don't want to do it so much that he wants to quit. So there's a very fine line there too. But Coach Cael too is also at, we have a lady there. She's an advanced sports psychologist. Her name Body Epstein. And she does like good energy. That's another weird thing we do at Penn State. We have her on the bench, and she does all this weird stuff too, where like she would have us and like we all put our arms together, and at the person at the end, she'd be like, "All right, now everybody think negative thoughts." And like he wouldn't be able to hold his arm, and then be like, "Now everybody think positive thoughts." And then he'd be able to hold his arm. I mean, just weird stuff like that. So there is something true that we all have our own energy. We either have good energy, or like when you walk into a room, you feel, you have that emotion, and you feel that if something's like not off or something's off, like the bad news is about to happen. So there's a whole spiritual component to this that we're all, we all have this good or bad energy within us too. And that, and with kids, they can really feed that. So if you have that negative tone and you're mad, that he's worried about making you bad, that's all he's getting from you yelling at him. No matter what you're saying, he can feel that bad energy. So really that's what you're getting to is that by saying, come on, you got this, that good energy is going to help them do better in a match than I would say really putting that negative energy of being disappointed or being mad. And that's part of that's a whole another part of the, I'd say person's, physiology that we truly don't understand. but I think it's a big aspect of it too, was that they talk about momentum. Well, what's momentum? Momentum is positive energy that you get while you're wrestling. You do something good and it just gives you energy. We don't really understand it yet. Same thing within football, you see it all the time. The momentum has changed. Well, they gained enough momentum and now you can't stop it. And they're scoring right and left and like that. Well, wrestling's like that too. So really, what helps that momentum change? Well, fans that are giving you positive energy will help give you that momentum. Fans that are giving negative energy, they're going to take away from that, so there is something
so
to
like trying to have a positive energy tone is kind of the more right. When you're talking to a kid or trying to encourage them to get up, don't scream at them for not getting up,
Yeah, whenever somebody's out there wrestling and you say, come on, you got it, you get off the bottom. Yeah, you got it, you can stand up. Having that positive, trying to smile when you talk, it's going to help you be on that positive mindset or give that positive energy to these kids.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere. I've taken my beatings, and I'm sure you have too. And getting yelled at while taking a beating is just not cool. But like someone like encouraging you, like, hey man, try you did, that actually it lessens the beating a little bit for me anyhow.
Well, that too, and even too, you can have fun with it too, because like I had kids out there, I'm coaching them. I'm like, we're getting whooped on. It's all right. Keep going.
Yeah.
Just be real with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of kids, and then they smile and then they start, it gives them hope that you understand what they're going through, and they're going to, it gives them that positive mindset to try to find a way to win, as opposed to, oh, I'm terrible, I'm losing, might as well get pinned. You go down that negative mindset.
And you can even if you do take a beating, you can still find like, hey, you did this good and this good. I mean, you can always find some. I think find some positives in there. I think you answered this already, but back to Penn State, best wrestler in the room. It was Cael, and it wasn't even close. Did you ever take him down like legit?
No.
That's so crazy.
No, the only person that I truly knew who took him down legit would be, Jake Farner. He was a little bit bigger, for the Olympics and stuff. But I say maybe Edmund Ruth, or not Edward Ruth. He was a teammate of mine. He's the only one that maybe took him down legit, caught him once. I'd say maybe once caught him. But Cael, he's funny where he would wrestle us and he would let us take him down like 90% of the way and then get out. That's how he played his games. That's still how he plays his games, where he'll wrestle with us. And if we do something good and we try to get him, he kind of lets us get it, like 99% of a takedown. And then he reverses and he gets it. Like, he doesn't let us get it. It's so frustrating. It's fun. I mean, it's funny though, because you're going to get it and then he just crushes your dreams. But I would say that's about, no one's really taking him down. And it's really has to do with the way he wrestles. Like I threw it out on Twitter one time and then I saw him in person. He's like, yeah, I almost tweeted back at you. I'm like, I know, I was baiting you into it, but I have this unstoppable throw that I hit everybody on it. And I hit Coach Cael and I hit Casey Cunningham on it, but I can't technically claim I got a takedown off of it. I at least got him to the mat and almost back, but I'll say I put him on the back, and I'll put him in position they have to deny it. They won't come out and do that.
Does he I don't know, I can't use the word, but does he live the lifestyle he preaches to you guys?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. He lives that, everything that we see.
I think that's a good, real quick, like a good lesson. It's like the best coach in sports, period, lives the lifestyle he expects of his athletes. And I think this applies to parents. I think it's good to practice what you preach and live a lifestyle that you want your kids, be what you want your kids to become, I guess. Is kind of
and there's no, and truly with wrestling, there's nothing that he wanted to do himself still. And there's still, with wrestling, like he wrestles more than wrestlers on the team. He's in there wrestling all the time with guys. So just his attitude with wrestling, he still sets the example there. And it's, when you have somebody like that, it makes a big difference with your, I don't want to do it today. Well, coach is, no, crap, I got to do it. Coach is doing it. But I can't let him show me up. I got to go and do it. So it's very important that, even too, like, not when Coach Cael preaches, like he preaches, like, we don't care if you win or lose. Well, whenever you lose a big match, him holding back and not getting super upset at the loss. There's been many times where like he's done that.
Right.
He's held himself back where he's super upset, but he's preaches, we don't care about winning, losing. We just want you to focus on scoring. And there's some bad losses where he kind of has to hold his tongue there and
Right.
follow through with that. But then it builds the credibility with the team.
Right. Yeah. Practice what you preach. Last question, man. I appreciate your time. Went longer than I thought, but I could, ask you questions forever. I'm assuming you read books, maybe not, but in your life, what's your favorite books? One or two, three, if there's any that pop off the top of your mind.
Well,
It's a very hard question. I have so many. It'd take a while.
Yeah, well, the first of all is the Bible. You got to read
Yeah.
the Bible. The stories in there. And here's the thing: is that you read the Bible and the stories that are in there, true stories. They're inspiring. There's to teach you a lesson or to learn from. Just like whenever I was having a bad year, and I read a story about Job who loses everything, and he gets even his wife tells him just curse God and die. Well, my life didn't quite get that bad yet. And he made it out. He got blessed 10 times more than he was beforehand. Use the Bible as a way to help you get through life. So that's number one. And then some of the other ones would be Coach Cael gave me some books whenever I was down. One was like How to Be Miserable. He gave me a book on how to be miserable. It was funny. Let me see if I can pull a picture of it. I put it in my phone because I keep tweeting about every once in a while. Let me see.
How to be miserable. So it's kind of good to learn. You learn how to be miserable and then
It's
do
a
the
self-help.
opposite to be happy.
Yeah, it's a self-help book. And that's what it says, how to be miserable, and because it's a self-help book. And it says, if you want to be miserable, you're going to complain about everything. You're going to do this. And then what happens is it's a reverse psychology book.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Because you're like, well, that's what I'm doing. And this is what I'm getting. So that's what you learn that way. The other one was a friend of mine in high school. He was my junior high coach, actually, and he's still coaching the high school I went to, Bald Eagle area. Steve Stem is his name. Well, he gave me a book that was really impactful. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big.
Yeah.
The Magic of Thinking Big. And what that is, that book really helps you understand to really same thing, turn everything around to it's not something that's bad for you. It's something that's going to help you get along. And then another book that I read when we talk about play, it was actually Dave Taylor actually stole his textbook. Yeah, I stole his textbook that he got from one of his classes, and it was just called Play. And it's written by like a doctor, and then it's an interesting book where he talked about the importance of playing and playing around. And that really solidified my notion of, well, that's how Penn State's so good, because all we do is play in the wrestling room. And whenever you're playing, you're out of that structure and you're kind of playing around, you learn to play, you get more creative and you get better. The book talks about life situations whenever the importance of play as a kid, where the kid doesn't play and doesn't do that. Like all the mass murderers were people who were very structured and didn't have that play in their life, pretty much, put it that way. Let's say, so those are books that come, definitely to mind. And
I like I'm a big fan of the How to Be Miserable, because,
yeah.
I've always, and I use this for my health clubs too, but it's always like, man, if you look at people who smoked and ate like crap their whole life, it's like, well, I don't want to feel like that. Do the opposite. You know what I mean? There's so many scenarios where it's easy to see, right? And just do the opposite, and then you're not miserable.
Yeah, and truly, and the other thing too is like I went to business school, and truly there's so many books out there where like the downfall of companies, like different companies that down. I don't know. I read a few books like that too, where it's truly the companies that are great. Why companies are great is because they kept doing what their mission was.
Right.
They kept their every decision they made was based on the focus of their mission statement. And once you stray away from that, that's when things start to fall apart. So you have to have a clear mission. And with Penn State Wrestling, what's our clear mission? To have fun, score points, or to win. Well, how do we win? We got to have fun. We got to score points. Well, how do you?
I've seen those too. Where you get the mission, and then the companies, and then what do? They sit down, refocus on the mission, and then it comes right back. It's very, very important to have that mission and stay on track towards it.
All right. Yeah, I got a call.
Yeah. So, and then what was I going to say? One last set. 3 books. I got a gazillion other questions, but I meant to do an hour and it's been an hour and 20. So
I talk a lot.
No, that's all right, man. I learned a lot. So I super appreciate your time, Quentin.
Yeah, not a problem.
And hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, anytime, just let me know. We'll set it up and we'll go ahead and do it again.